We now move on to our next session, another important panel on a very important topic. The session is now on Indigenous 5G networks and ecosystems. I would now like to call upon my panelists for this session. Mr. Kishore Babu, Officer of Indian Telecom Service, is a strong supporter of competencies of Indian innovation systems and entrepreneurial abilities of startups and SMEs. In his current role, he facilitates engagement with Indian technology companies in the domains of standardization, R&D, innovation. He contributed and facilitated National Digital Communications Policy in 2018 and spectrum reforms leading to delicensing of 5 GHz Wi-Fi spectrum and license exempt brands for short-range devices and ultra-wide band devices. Let me welcome on stage Mr. Kishore Babu. And he's running and coming, so you can take your time. So let me introduce Dr. Rajkumar Upadhyay, an officer of the Indian Telecommunications Services of Government of India. He's currently working as Executive Director C. and Deputy Director General in the Department of Telecommunications. Earlier, he was the Additional Director General for DD and AIR and in charge of South Zone of Doordarshan. Prior to this position, Dr. Upadhyay was working with Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. During his stint as advisor in TRI, he has involved in preparation of National Broadband Plan and National Telecom Policy 2012 for the country. Welcome, Dr. Upadhyay. My next panelist, Rajesh Tuli, MD, Coral Telecom. Coral have been building enterprise communication solutions for defense, railway, ISRO since over 45 years. Our largest aircraft carrier, Vikramaditya, runs on communication solutions designed by them. They cater to requirements for call centers, smart cities, and various metros. With the experience of managing enterprise networks, Coral has taken upon itself to integrate various pieces of subsystems of 5G network designed by Indian MSME companies. Let me welcome Mr. Rajesh Tuli. And the session will be moderated by Prasanto K. Roy. Prasanto is Managing Director at FTI Consulting, a DC-based advisory firm. He was earlier Vice President at NASSCOM. He has worked closely with industry and government on policy, market development and growth, and many other issues. He was the President and Chief Editor at Cyber Media, India's largest technology publishers, for over 10 years. Welcome, Mr. Roy, and over to you.
Thank you so much. This is, I think, a short and sweet panel, but quite fascinating because we're looking at on the domestic side, Atmanirbharta has actually been a major movement and it's driven from the top. I think we've seen a lot of success in telecom itself on the handset side. On the PLI scheme, I think the kind of golden sort of standard there is really what's happening on the mobile side. An enormous amount of manufacturing on this side. On the 5G area, which is of course, this new, and it's a completely revolutionary technology. On the network side, it works very differently. There's an enormous amount of software. So, when you're trying to look at things like localization and all of that, it's actually very difficult to put your finger on exactly how you will classify those and how much of it is software, what is the value to that software, where was that software made, can you actually apportion that, okay, this much has come from this region and things like that. So I'm going to just start by asking the panel really, what does Atmanirbharta mean in the 5G context? What could we aspire to here when we are looking at 5G? And can we look at, and for each of you it may mean different things, and Mr. Tuli, we were talking about from the enterprise point of view, it's a very different thing and it's a different niche. Thank you. But for each of you, and you could start, sir, perhaps, that, in your point of view, what is Atmanirbharta as far as 5G is concerned? And we'll be very specific about, because 5G is here now. It's not now, next year or the year after. So what does it mean?
Hello. Hello. Am I audible to the people sitting in the back? First and foremost, very, very good afternoon. And I presume that there would have been one more session after the lunch. Otherwise, it's difficult for us to, keep you interesting because that also such a complex topic called 5G and Atmanirbharta. And thanks for the moderator for asking the very, very important question about what is that you view as, Atmanirbharta, especially in 5G. Uh, Representing the Standards R&D Innovation Division from Department of Telecom, first and foremost, let me thank all the industry stakeholders, Indian companies, domestic companies, indigenous companies, and as well as the global companies who have been contributing very significantly for building the necessary competencies. If you look at, uh, I think around a year and a half back, we started taking an assessment about what are the indigenous companies, who started working on these deep technologies in 5G. Okay. We realized that many of these, they are founders who are young entrepreneurs. They are from, most of them are from, some of the global companies, global centers of excellence who worked and came out with that entrepreneurial spirit. They started these, technology companies. So the competencies what have been built in the system to really what's called strengthen the Atmanirbharta initiative or Atmanirbharta program is coming from every stakeholder from the industry. It could be service providers, technology companies, global companies, academia, and one and all. So coming to the specific issue of about 5G, uh, as you can see, 5G as a technology, nobody can start straight away, okay, I'll build a 5G product. So here, when you mean about Atmanirbharta and 5G, it includes something called building capacity as well as competencies for something what I can call as a R&D stack. Suppose if somebody wants to develop a 5G system in the country, they have to do something called wireless R&D. What are the things required for wireless R&D? Are we having ease to get the spectrum to do R&D in your lab? That becomes part of the 5G R&D stack, which can promote, technology development. Coming to specific 5G products, again, in 5G products, again, as the moderator mentioned, there are components, there are systems, and also there are many IPs which you may have to bring from others because this is a kind of technology which has been flowing from 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G. So a lot of IPs are owned by many of the, I should say, many industry majors who may have to work with and, work together in a very collaborative way. So from my view, Atmanirbharta in 5G system means it includes developing systems by owning technology ownership. Yes, in the process, you may also develop some of the IPs involved in that, and also building competencies for manufacturing so that you can able to give affordable products. And at the ultimate point, especially with regard to 5G, even the use cases, how you can make use cases locally relevant use cases in the country so that there will be demand for 5G products as well as services. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Babu. Mr. Upadhyay, from your point of view, and from a technology organization, from the R&D point of view, okay, what would you really be focusing on when you're looking at trying to sort of indigenize a lot of the value chain and the supply chains of 5G? And there are different directions. I mean, you could be looking at really overall by value, how much of localization you can bring in. From the government's point of view, it's a range of things, jobs, etc. There are cyber imperatives in terms of security and so on. But what would you say would be important from the R&D side in terms of identifying what is key in the Atmanirbhar 5G ecosystem?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here. See, first of all, Atmanirbharta, the clarion call by Honorable Prime Minister, is for all the sectors. But as far as the telecom is concerned, there are two critical aspects of Atmanirbharta. One is economic perspective. There is a second perspective, security perspective. First, I'll come to security perspective because all of us know as the softwareization is happening, increasing in the 2G to 3G to 4G, 5G is totally software. The chances of security breach are very, very high. And many of the countries, you may be aware, have banned certain vendors because of the security breach. And telecom being the critical infrastructure in terms of if this goes down, your banking will go down, your education will go down, your health will go down, your grids will go down. Therefore, it is imperative for all of us that our network is fully safe. And in the software it is very difficult, because I worked in 2 years in Y.G.S.C. It is very difficult to find out what is inside, because if you get asked, give me 10 libraries are there in that function, the vendor can show you all 10 library, 11th is inside but you don't know. It will operate when it wants. So these are the security problems. Because of the security problem, we must get the technology developed in India. Now the second question is economic perspective. Why should we do this? Because in any management decision, there is a make or buy. And the globalization has led to the concept of saying that go to a place where you get the cheapest item. Today, textile is cheapest in Bangladesh. Clothes will come from Bangladesh. So same is the technology, and we have been following that. Wherever the technology we get, we used to do tender and get the technology for India. But if you look at the overall, if you have to look at the security part, then you have to develop your ecosystem, right from your components to chips, to manufacturing, to R&D, design, everything. And since most of the talent is driven by India, even the chips for Intel, Qualcomm, Broadcom, most of it happening in Noida, Gurgaon, Bangalore. So when we are such a talented country, why can't we do? And that's what Prime Minister said, that you guys are so intelligent, you guys are doing IPs for the rest of the world, why can't you do it yourself? So therefore, from our perspective, we were given this task in 2020, that give 4G for India. Start with 4G. If you can't develop 5G, because 5G was a little distant that time. And I'm happy to report to you that we have developed indigenous 4G as well 5G NSA at CDOT, along with radio with Tejas. And this particular equipment will be launched in BSNL within this year. Before December, it will be launched, indigenous technology. So this 4G gave us confidence that when we can do 4G, it is again incremental thing. So we did 5G NSA. In fact, BSNL will launch the service with 5G NSA. So this is, but what happens that, when you are making your own technologies, there are two parts, hardware and software. Hardware, we still have a lot of problem because we have no control on supply chain. Today you order any chip, the lead time is 52 weeks. What will you develop? The guy is saying, I'll give you chips after 52 weeks, then you design PCB, then you assemble it, then you test it. 2-3 years, technology changes. What has happened? Why is the time for India now? Because as we have moved from 2G to 3G to 4G to 5G, hardware is going down like this, and software is coming up like this. Our 4G doesn't depend on any hardware. It is just you buy a piece of server from HP, IBM, anybody, it will work. Same will happen with 5G. So what will happen earlier, what used to happen, if you go from 3G to 4G to 5G, they will say, okay, I'll give you one more additional card at this price. And you cannot throw him out because you are now wedded to that hardware. So that time they will charge you bomb. Now since your hardware is same, tomorrow you change the software, become 5G NSA. Again software is changed, become 5G SA. Lot has to be done. Government of India has taken multiple initiatives. I can start with MIT doing something like MSIP, PMP, so many programs which has now led to manufacturing of mobile phones in India. Today we are exporting $5 billion worth of mobile phones and importing hardly 2 billion, not even 2 billion. So the whole, if you look at the whole export of the electronic components, it is hardly 10 to 15 billion dollar. What is the import? Import is $70 billion. So we have a trade deficit of approximately 60 to 65 billion dollar. If this import can be bridged, a lot of jobs will be created, a lot of employment generation will happen, your disposable incomes will go up. Therefore, Atmanirbharta not only is cyber security, it is economic perspective also. Government, definitely government should invest in R&D, because without R&D you can't do this. R&D is a must. Without R&D, manufacturing is of, you will buy imported technology and manufacture here. Therefore, our Honorable Prime Minister on 15th August speech, he added the word Jai Anusandhan. And government, whenever coins a new slogan, it gets implemented through various schemes. You look at the National Policy on Electronic, NPE to 2019. Based on that, PLI came. PLI in telecom, PLI in IT, PLI in this. ISM came, Indian Semiconductor Mission, 76,000 crore mission has come. Under that, the government is funding for semiconductor fab, display panels, semiconductor packaging, as well as design-led incentive schemes. So many schemes, government, when you simply coin a word, it won't work. So government has to follow it up with various schemes which government has come up, PLI, DLI, ISM. So many schemes are there. So therefore, I see a big opportunity for India, we are not only supplying for India, we will slowly supply for the rest of the world. I'm very sure about it, because the kind of talent we have in our country, the kind of, Mr. Kishore was referring, that so many startups are coming up, and the government has also, put lot of attention on startup. They are funding, like we are funding now. From C-Dot, we are going to fund, DOT is going to fund, DOT recently funded from DCIS scheme some 50 crore or something. So lot of startups are being funded, and therefore, bit by bit, straight away we can't reach 100%. Bit by bit, we'll close the gap, and sooner or later, it should be fully indigenous. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll come back to some of these very interesting points you raised, because supply chain security, I think that's a very foundational, very fundamental thing. And there are, of course, two aspects to it. One is securing your supply chain so that you don't have disruptions, like the automotive industry has been disrupted by lack of chips. So there is obviously a supply chain security issue, apart from other issues there which are there. Or EVs, lithium, if lithium gets to be in short supply, there'll be a problem, and so on. But on the cyber security side, it would be actually interesting to look at, since you said there is so much of software. We'll come back to this question of how then you can actually, define how much of the actual silicon and so on should be made in India. Should it be really the software that you are primarily looking at in something like 5G? I'll come back to that. But Mr. Tuli, I want your perspective first. And your very interesting perspective from actually a manufacturing, a design and manufacturing company here, which is focused on the enterprise side of 5G and other technologies.
Thank you very much. And before I start my answer to this question, let me say, this is the right time. If India can do it, this is the time. I've been in business for 45 years. If India can't do it at this time, I don't think we'll ever get a more opportune time to do it. The ecosystem itself is fairly, conducive. We find support from the top leadership in this country today, at least in the telecom ministry, I see that happening. And the kind of monitoring of our key asks, today if we make an ask to the government, to the minister level, it is being systematically monitored, better monitoring that we see in corporate. The entire ecosystem, right from supporting MSMEs by way of giving them schemes like DCIS scheme, 17 startups were funded, 52 crores was given to them, and 100% success was achieved. So that is something which we see. I am a member of several committees of the government where we do R&D funding. It's the first time that I see that funds, the grants are being given to private sector. Erstwhile, we used to only give grants, R&D funds to public sector companies. And we got excellent results. Another large scheme, DCIS, where government is funding up to 10 crores to startups, MSMEs. Now that is where we will create the foundation for Atmanirbharta. Similarly, for market pull, it is not just one policy. This is the first time you see a bouquet of policies which are going to support the concept of Atmanirbharta. If I was to just design a product, it will not really give me, I'll not be able to monetize it. I need to be able to get a market pull, something that Mr. Goel was talking about a little while back. So there is a PMI policy, public procurement manufacturing, preference to domestic manufacturers. Now that has also been, put in place, and today people are getting traction because of that. So all I'm trying to say is that it is a bouquet of policies and government initiatives which is going to create this particular platform for Atmanirbharta. Now regarding products, we have been able to design in these MSME companies, right, even the chipsets. So very soon you will have a 5G radio which has a domestic chipset. Now Atmanirbharta is all about building an environment, an ecosystem, where we are not dependent on a foreign country or a foreign nation. The IPR belongs to us. We can set up the entire system, entire solution without being dependent on any other country or any specific organization. So that's unlike, now look at the concept of WhatsApp. WhatsApp is an excellent tool, but today they're virtually Meta dictates us. Our privacy rights, we're raising lot of voice about the privacy encroachments that we see in Meta, but can we do anything about it? So that is a situation. Now, it's not essentially for economic gains. It is your sovereignty which is at stake. It is the security of the nation which is at stake. It is my privacy which is at stake. So I would say it is not only the commercial or economic considerations. What when we talk about, at least I interpret Atmanirbharta, I mean my privacy, my security, my decision to set up a network or not to set up a network should be in my control. That is control of India. I think here in 5G, today we have the entire ecosystem. What government has even further motivated us, these small Indian companies, the startups, the MSMEs, they created e-note Bs, they created radios, they created IMS, they created NMS. Customer does not buy an e-note B, customer doesn't buy an IMS alone. Customer wants an end-to-end solution. That is where we domestic companies used to get left out, because you go to a large customer, railways, defense, or mines, or anyone. He wants an end-to-end solution. He doesn't want to deal with a radio guy. And that's where this particular ecosystem, government supported, and they said, you get into creating consortium. So we created consortiums, we integrated and stitched together all these pieces. DOT has been extremely supportive. That's why I'm saying again and again, it is the entire bouquet of policy and ecosystem which has been created, which is going to take us to the next level of Atmanirbharta. I promise you, today we have stitched together multiple solutions and use cases for various private networks. And my focus and my take is that private network would be one tool which the government needs to leverage to promote domestic companies and domestic designs. While the public networks may be far more critical, they may be far more sensitive. Enterprise networks which are yet to come up, they're not going to be all that critical. They will allow time and place for us to experiment, and together we will succeed with our domestic companies. In fact, my request to the government is that spectrum for setting up private networks should be earmarked only for such companies who are using domestically designed complete solution. This is not a new ask from us. This was there in NFAP 2010 and NFAP 2012. So our frequency allocation plans, national frequency allocation plans, in the past have been having these kind of stipulations and safeguards to promote domestic. So if we do all this, you have Atmanirbharta in place. Thank you, sir.
Terrific. That's a very promising view. So I'm going to come back. I also want to keep this interactive. So at this stage itself, if you have something to intervene or a question, please just raise your hand. So yes, sir, go ahead. Let's start with that. Exporting?
Yeah, actually to 2021 we exported around $3 billion, and this year we are expecting exactly to a $3.16 billion. 2022 we are expected to export $5.5 billion worth of mobile phones.
Okay, so may I please know which companies are those? Just
Even Apple is being made here.
yeah,
Even
that's
iPhones are being made.
That's okay. If even in if we
There
are
are
accepting-
Foxconn, Dixon, many companies are there.
great. If we are accepting that part of it, then how come the companies are which we got the recent news that are trying to park the money outside India and benefiting through other corrupt means, where we saw that a lot of money was.
No, I think you are talking of some brands of a particular.
Yes, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
particular company.
We are giving
So
our
That's a
facilities,
different
our
issue.
resources.
That's a
probably
very different issue.
conversation.
As far as the production is concerned,
Yes.
production happening here and export happening here, this is the data not mine. ICA or
Yeah, that's okay. Is
G4
India
agencies
benefiting
are there
from that?
which publish
That
this.
is the part. Yes, we are exporting. Is India benefiting from that part? I'm just asking a clarification. It is not that I'm pointing out something.
The manufacturing operations, are you saying, is India benefiting?
Yes.
No, definitely.
I would imagine so.
Definitely,
There
because see what
is-
happens when when you, I'll give you an example. If India was not benefiting, government will never come with PLI. Government came with production linked incentive. Why is that we are giving this incentive also, you must understand. We have the disability in our sector in terms of logistics, in terms of quality of power, in terms of, taxation. 8 to 10% disability is what is suffered by the Indian. And that is why Mighty, if you look at, they brought the first schemes way back in 2012. Then they modified in 15, 16, 17, and as per the demand of the industry, these policies are regularly.
Areas of this, given that there's a lot of software, there are maybe some critical and strategic components. And incidentally, this question of security, cyber security, it's not just there in telecom. There are 6 critical infrastructure areas, and we're going to get to all of them. So telecom has been the first one where there's this NSDTS and this directive, but power sector is following up. BFSI will be next. There'll be transportation, government, defense, all of that. So obviously what telecom is doing is going to be a template in terms of how you can make a system potentially cyber secure, understand the supplies, the supply chain, where the components were made and so on. So my question would be is, are there areas that we could focus on when we are saying, indigenous? Clearly, I think there's a recognition that you would not make everything yourself. Even in DPIIT's classification, class 1 is at 50%. So there's a recognition that, at your class 1, 50% is good enough to get you class 1 right now. You're not going to get to 100% in everything, or 70 or even 80% or 60%. Okay. So therefore, are there areas that we should focus on in terms of strategic importance, which are critical because of this supply chain security or supply chain cyber security issue? Because right now, the focus is pretty much on all active silicon in that. And that's not so much based on cost or BOM, but it's based on basically all silicon. But should it be, for example, software? Would there be particular components? I'm looking at it from the cyber security and the strategic security imperative, and this concern that 5G, especially because of this enormous amount of software. And by the way, a lot of that software might be in the cloud and not actually on the devices or on the BTS units or whatever. So any thoughts on that? Anybody on the?
Prashant, I'll take your question on this. First you said 50% value addition, the mighty condition of classifying a product as Indian. I think we'll have to count on baby steps only. We just can't say day one that 100% including silicons are going to be Indian. Not possible. So it has to be baby steps, and I think we've taken some baby steps. There are concerns about silicon. One, we don't have a furnace here. So in any case, I don't see it happening in the near foreseeable future. The best that you can do is to hope and count on the software that you're building around a chip. Chip directly is not picking up a picture from you and sending it to Beijing. It is the software and the intervening layers which come into the picture. So one need not be hypersensitive about using silicon which is coming from outside. And if you stop silicon use from outside, trust me, all this will go, far.
Okay, that's a very clear, articulated view. Any other thoughts?
So, if you look at 5G, the core equipment, that is purely software, I don't think India has any challenge. Next year, believe me, there will be multiple companies which will come up with 5G as a core in India. Jio is already saying we are also developing, TCS is developing, and many more we will be developing, and the best product will come out. So on the core side, we have no issue. But the RAN is still, as Tuliji was telling, a lot of chips have to come from outside. You cannot design chips overnight here. Even if your semiconductor mission has come now, the results will be seen maybe after 5 to 10 years, not now. Your policy of mobile manufacturing, which you have achieved today, the steps were taken in 2012. So almost 10 years later, you are now boasting that I'm manufacturing here. So on the RAN side, these challenges will continue. And because of that, as you said, 6 critical infrastructure, but let me remind you that all other infrastructure depend upon the telecom. Your power sector grid depends upon telecom. Your banking transactions depend upon telecom.
Telecom also depends on power. And on BFSI.
No. So power you can't bring down. Electricity you can't bring down. You can bring down the connected software. You can bring down the grid which is connected. So slowly these, see what happens, the chip manufacturing is one part, but chip design is another part. chip design, primarily lot of chip design happens in India. That's why India is thinking that, with our semiconductor policy, the design, since design we are already quite well in terms of our talent. If the manufacturing also happens here, the complete supply chain will do. Now regarding, you touched upon the trusted part, the government of India came somewhere in December 2020 with National Security Directive or Telecom, wherein there is a portal, a telecom trusted portal managed by NSCS. They basically, take all these technology, all these components, they get into in detail and declare you a trusted source. So once you are declared a trusted source, anybody can buy. Like for example, suppose Nokia has been declared a trusted source, Airtel is buying, they won't have to do any other thing.
No, you have the trusted product after that. That's the next step.
That's what I'm saying, trusted product.
First step is source,
Suppose
then product.
Nokia has given the RAN design completely and told this RAN I have manufactured like this, these are the chip design, and this particular product has been given trusted tag. So next time Airtel buys or Vodafone buys, you don't have to do that process again. You just say that I want to buy this, is available. If it is a trusted source, you can buy directly. So a lot of control on the trust part has been done. Maybe completely you can't eliminate, but a lot of it is actually controlled through this trusted portal.
Actually, the approvals are interim because some of the components which are China sourced are a problem, and they've been asked to look at alternate supply chains for those. Anyway, that's a different issue. I'd like to come to you, sir, for your thoughts on this.
See, when you look at the trusted source, and the other one is that Atmanirbharta as a, two themes. My view is that they are complementary but different paths. Trusted source is something what we are looking at, okay, among the available ecosystem, which are more safe for me to use and deploy. That could be Indian, that could be imported. It could have been, assembly of many Indian as well as imported things together. That is with regard to trusted sources. But when we look at Atmanirbharta as a program, there, as the previous distinguished members spoke about, there are multiple elements are there. One is about economic aspect, and second thing is about how you can reduce your dependency on others, strategic dependency. There is something beyond, what I should say, safety, security, economic part, dependency issue, which may impact your, economic, challenges. Like for example, some of the, previous, last 2 years, I think 3-4 years back, a chipset company declared that they will not support a particular company for its chipsets. So the company almost came down to knees. So I was told that some 3 billion was penalty put on that company, and some particular top executive manpower has been hacked. They have been removed to restore the chipset company's support to that particular company. So the issue of Atmanirbharta includes economic impact, strategic part, as well as remaining technologically independent. So, but at the same time, in the case of complex ecosystem like telecom, is it really possible for everybody to make 100%? Just not possible. It's just not possible because I happened to see one of the Reebok shoe, how it gets assembled with various components coming from different parts of the world. Something similar even in the case of any telecom ecosystem. Like it works on not only technological competences, but production capacities, and also the component competencies in different parts of the world, based on that economies of scale. So over a period of time, like the way we started with mobile manufacturing in the country, maybe initially it was purely a kind of trading mechanism. Now some of the PCBs are coming, we are doing kind of assembly testing and other things. And we have also seen the phase program where some of the components, there are plans to get them developed. Then when it comes to semiconductor part, which ultimately is like a black box for many of us, what is inside we don't know, but there is a lot of dependency on importing the chipsets. As Mr. Upadhyay mentioned that now even the supply chain disruption is very, very high to get them to delivery. We have seen in the news that, okay, transport vehicles are getting delayed because chipsets are not available. So this could be a kind of challenge for us, for a flourishing economy like India. The supply chain disruption itself also could be a major problem. So what could be the way forward? Yes, we have a kind of fabrication plants or capacities in the country, which is again a huge investment versus opportunity. Plus going further down, that is in the upstream, that can we also have the design capacities, as Mr. Upadhyay also mentioned, that for many of the MNCs, there are competencies in the country where you design, but as a contractor. Is there any way where you can own the design ownership? You can become the technology partner to the world, the way National Digital Communication Policy envisaged, how India can become a kind of more constructive and as well as collaborative partner in enhancing in value chain. That is something where I feel that Atmanirbharta as an initiative coming, how we can enhance our value add. Like somebody was telling that in the market of chipsets, they say that the market is around 650 billion globally, in which they divided into three parts. One is about assembly and mounting, which is said to be around 100 billion, and some part again with regard to fabrication, which again it is to around 100 billion. If you remove these 200s, the remaining is around 400 billion. This 400 billion is owned by, is going to design ownership. The designers who own fabless design, they are neither manufacturing nor doing assembly and testing, but they get this much value in the total value chain. So we are already having, we have got demonstrated competencies for doing even the majors. A lot of chipsets get designed, at least 50 to 60% they get designed in India. So the opportunity is that can we create the model ecosystem where India can be a value added partner in the particular high value domain, which of course it creates invariably a kind of high end, high qualified professional jobs, but also kind of technology ownership in the country, which reduces dependency on the strategic areas so that they don't get economically impacted in case any of the difference in the powers of imbalance.
Okay, that's a great point there. So I'm going to take up from there, and I just want to closing round on the geopolitical alignments which are there now. India is getting into the presidency of the G20, and I want to see what are the likelihood of alignment on the 5G cooperation side, because there are a lot of common concerns as far as 5G security, etc. is concerned. A lot of countries want to establish leadership. India has leadership in software. So let's look at what the possibilities are there in terms of perhaps trusted corridors, trusted security corridors or cyber security corridors. But I just want to stop for a second, and if there are any other questions or interventions to the panel, we have another 7 minutes left. Yes, sir, go ahead. If we could, do we have a mic there? Okay. And just introduce yourself and put the question very briefly since we are low on time.
Hello, this is Alok Saxena. I have a question regarding 5G economy. How is 5G good for the economy, especially in terms of jobs opportunity? In terms of details about Indian perspective, because there is lots of jobs requirement in Indian perspective. How is 5G helpful in the Indian context?
Okay, so we'll just park that for a second. Any other questions which we can? Yes, Mr. Goyal, please. Again, do we have a mic which is just coming up to you?
I'm Professor N.K. Goyal, Chairman, Telecom Body TEMA. I'm just raising a very controversial issue. Has anybody in the world done or doing any study with the increase of so-called BTS, small cells, 5G proliferation? Does it have any effect on the human health?
What's the last sentence?
I was saying that with the proliferation, so much of small cells are BTS every 100, 500, 600 meters or so. Is anybody in the world doing any study? Does it have any effect on human health?
Okay, EMF and human health. So that is, of course, an old area which may come up again in the 5G context because of microcells. And I think those of you who, many might remember that actually India dialed down the power transmit level. It capped it at probably the most aggressive.
1 by ICNRP,
1/10.
1 by 10.
And WHO said that that's a health hazard because when you're cutting it down that much, your phones are transmitting at high power, and everybody has phones in their pockets transmitting at maximum power. But that's a different story. So would anybody like to quickly address both of these issues? One is jobs. I think very briefly in the context of Atmanirbhar, clearly the Atmanirbhar ecosystem, whether it is manufacturing of
Jobs,
handsets.
I can only say that the kind of new applications are going to come with 5G. It will definitely create new businesses, new revenue streams. Up to 4G, it was voice and data, nothing else. Now with the 5G, a lot of new things are coming. Industry automation 4.0. You would have seen port saying that we have tested 5G in port. Mining department saying we have done this use case in mining. Somewhere drones are doing, your fertilizer kind of thing. A lot many new applications will be opened up and they will create jobs. Like 4G did Uber, Ola, these kind of things. 5G will definitely bring up new ways of deliveries, new ways of doing, automation, new ways of new use cases, and therefore definitely it will create jobs, additional jobs.
I would only compliment what Upadhyay ji is saying. Look, till 4G, it was all a telco domain. And it was one set of features which was given to everybody. 5G is going to be for every enterprise. Now, every enterprise, every organization, say this hotel, or a mine, or a railway, they would have specific use cases. The requirement of railway is going to be very different from that of a mine. A mine may have an autonomous vehicle, while in railways there could be anti-collision systems, there could be Excel counters, there could be different kind of requirements. So this is going to open up a whole lot of opportunities for various entrepreneurs and domestic companies to come up with these solutions. Their dependence on telcos, I personally feel, will not be all that much, because telcos would try to deliver something one size which fits all. So they would cater to a large segment of the market, but these niche areas will open up huge amount of opportunities. Like Coral, at Coral we set up enterprise communication system, the PBXs. The way a PABX works in a call center is very different from the way a PABX works in a hospital, or the way it works in a defense network. They're all very different. So it is not, telco cannot probably cater to these niche needs. So this will open up a lot of opportunities for building applications, as Upadhyay ji said. You need a billing solution, you need a ACD, you need a call center solution. So all these kind of application opportunities will come up, and there we as Indians are very good. You will have a whole lot of companies coming up with these solutions, and I think we will have overall a very positive scenario for SMEs and software companies. Thank you.
Anyone want to take up the EMF question? Mr. Goyal?
Goyal sir put me in a very difficult situation. No sir, always this is a very important question. Just to complement with regard to the previous question with regard to employment generation, you look at ultimately having a kind of real-time scenario where we can extend our senses. That's what internet or broadband is doing. Like for example, today if you look at the aggregation markets, aggregation platforms, like for example, Urban Clap. So many skilled people are there in the society, but I'm unable to tap them on one-on-one. Imagine about the kind of directly you're able to give employment to somebody who is skilled. That is something the power of internet. And when, as it grows in capacities and abilities, like you may be aware, in the case of 5G, apart from the broadband speed, it is going to have more capabilities like, ultra reliability, low latency, massive machine type of abilities. Like I was sharing one example with members, like we are having only 26 alphabets in English. How much of literature we have created? Similarly, 5G has got, imagine, 3 alphabets. It can create hundreds of applications which we may not be even thinking right now. That's the kind of capabilities what it can bridge by becoming more and more real-time and close to different applications. It could be agriculture, it could be education. Nowadays, you have seen after this video conferencing and as well as broadband got proliferated, how many teachers are getting employment in private tuitions? They don't travel everywhere. They take so many students in the day, maybe hourly basis or something. So to really encourage these 5G applications across the economic as well as social verticals, DOT has constituted something called Interministerial Committee with 21 ministries who are working together to push proactively how these use cases can be adopted in all these enterprises, apart from that government agencies for different applications. Coming to the TMF issue, sir, yes, it's a very, very important issue for the government as well as society. And as they mentioned, WHO and its associated agencies, they are continuously working on this front. And what we hear is that even the 3GPP, when they came out certain power levels for LTE as well as for this 5G, and even for LTE advanced, there were license statements with WHO and others about what are the power levels they are going to use. If you look at, though they are becoming small cells, power levels are still limited. It's not that power level is increased. The same definition of what is a class 3 device, class 2 device, class 1 device, they remain same. So 23 dBm remains to be the handset, which is a what's called more closer to us than what is coming from BTS. So naturally, all those EMF concerns, health concerns are taken into consideration. Experts world over, not in the India alone. It's well taken care. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are actually out of time. Okay, we'll go ahead and take that question, and we'll have to drop this last bit on the G20 part. So if there are maybe one or two questions, we can just quickly take them up because time's up here. And very quickly, please.
I'm Gaurang Mishra from Orange. My question to you, sir, is that since we are talking a lot about the sovereignty and data privacy, at the same time we are talking about moving our telco infrastructure to public clouds. So is there anything that, from the Government of India perspective, where we can talk about forming a consortium of maybe developing a telco cloud for the Indian subcontinent in order to, protect our data and move forward in that direction? Because this thing is something which is being taken care by the European subcontinent as well, forming a telco cloud on the European subcontinent.
Yeah,
So
having said that, you've got to keep in mind that the BFSI sector, for example, does use cloud very extensively. Of course, extraordinary levels of security, and they are dealing with money. But anybody would like to quickly address that?
See, if you look at this privacy, data protection, as well as cloud kind of regulation concern, you may be aware that Ministry of Electronics and IT has been working on that, especially taking into consideration the developments on regulatory front in Europe as well as in other countries. It's something very, very important because even for telecom perspective, lot of technologies with regard to mobile switching are moving to the cloud, and that's invariably a priority area. Even when you go to mobile edge computing, still you are having some kind of cloudification where your key resources are going to be positioned in the cloud. And some of the institutions, even like Y.G.S.C as well as IIT Kharagpur and one more institution, IIT Delhi, they are having certain proposals and thoughts, what ways certain protections can be enhanced when you are using cloud or when you are moving resources to the cloud, of course, taking note of the concerns, privacy as well as security, protection, etc. Yes, it is very much on cards about how do we realize this, which can go in a long way with what's called maximum security and minimum disruption.
thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. We have to wrap up. We are well over time, and we haven't been able to take up this last bit, but we are getting into G20, and on the Sherpa track, technology cooperation is one key part of it. So I'm sure 5G and opportunities there on the cybersecurity side, all of that will come up in a big way. But thank you very much. This has been a very illuminating discussion, and very clearly we are heading into very significant capabilities that India can kind of leverage toward Atmanirbharta with 5G as a peg and a platform. Thank you very much, and back to you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Can I just request you to be on stage for a minute? And let me invite Mr. Himanshu Gupta, Country Manager, Telecom, Media and Entertainment, HP India, to felicitate you with mementos of appreciation for being here at this conference. Also, a short announcement, we will be serving tea inside the auditorium, so nobody needs to really go out and, because we're not taking any break as this is the last session. So if there's any tea requirement, it's going to be served inside. Also, those of you who joined us in the second half of the conference would request you to please fill up the feedback form. The voice and data team will be sharing that with you. You can leave those feedback. You can leave those feedback forms on the table. The team will collect it or give it on the registration desk. All those who joined us in the second half would appreciate some feedback, please, for us to improve and serve you better. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for this very rich and interesting conversation.